especially John Blish for helping put this together. I want to thank the candidates for showing up, and Jeff Thompson as well, who's going to be acting as our moderator or facilitator. Take your pick of your favorite word there. Jeff has been an attorney. Next month will be 33 years. He started out as an assistant state attorney back in the mid-'80s. He's been in private practice since then. Roughly 20, well, not roughly, exactly 20 years ago, in '96, from '96 to '97, he served as president of the Brevard County Bar Association. This year I'm serving as president of the Brevard County Bar Association. For those that don't know me, I'm Brian Lober. So he's been in my shoes quite some time back. He is quite experienced. I've seen him in court, out of court, and I thank him for helping putting this on as well. So at this point, I'll invite him up, and then we'll start out with the clerk's candidates. I'll have them come up as well now.
Thank you, Brian, and thank all of you for coming tonight to this candidates forum sponsored by the Brevard County Bar Association. We're going to focus on 3 races, as you know. The first will be the clerk of the court race between Scott Ellis, the Republican incumbent, and Dave Netterstrom, the former mayor of Cocoa Beach, who is running with no party affiliation. We will spend the first half hour or so on this portion of tonight's presentation, and then hope to spend the last hour on the judicial candidates, and we'll do both county and circuit together. I do need to let you know that one of the candidates for circuit judge, Steve Henderson, could not be here tonight. Briefly, before we start asking questions of the candidates, let me tell you what the clerk's office does, and a little bit about the office. The clerk's office is responsible for maintaining the files and records of the entire court system for the county. It maintains the county's land records or public records, issues marriage licenses and juror summonses, and processes applications for passports from the State Department, serves as clerk to the Board of County Commissioners, and serves as Chief Financial Officer for the county, which means that the clerk is responsible for ensuring that any county expenditure is authorized by law. The annual salary is $145,431. The term of office is 4 years, and the election is countywide. So welcome, gentlemen, and let's start out by having each of you briefly introduce yourselves and tell us what you feel are the primary issues in your race. And Scott, we'll go ahead and start with you.
All right, thank you, Jeff. My name is Scott Ellis. I'm currently the clerk of the court. I had been the clerk of the court prior. I left office. I came back, defeated Mitch Needleman in 2012. There's a criminal case that arises from that. It's still going. Probably the biggest issues continuing to face the clerk's office are budgetary. We've been cut by the state approximately $2.6 million in the last 3.5 years, and so we continue to lose people. We have compensated by going electronic. As you know, we have electronic filing here in Brevard County, not just the attorneys, but the judges have been very good working with us. They also do all electronic filing, electronic ordering. It's a very serious job. It's a come to work every day, know what you're doing job. It's not a job for a frivolous effort. Thank you.
Thank you. Dave?
Hi, I'm Dave Netterstrom, former mayor of Cocoa Beach and now running for clerk of court. I am running as an NPA, as I firmly believe that this position ought to be a nonpartisan position. It's a non-policy making position. Policy is made by others that you elect. The clerk's responsibility is to just execute per the rules set by others. As I will pledge to run from a neutral position. I won't be pushing any personal agenda, and I'll be focusing on doing the job that you hired me to do. I was born in Washington, D.C. I moved to Cocoa Beach when I was 14. I'm married for 28 years. I have three grown kids and a grandchild, which I really like that experience. I've got an engineering degree from Purdue University, a master's from Florida Atlantic University. I've worked in the corporate world. My last job was working for Ericsson Telecommunications, which became Sony Mobile Telecommunications. cell phones. I was the operations director for North America. I got tired of being a good corporate boy and moved back to my hometown in about 2003. I got involved with some real estate and other investments. Got involved with the local politics. I became a candidate for, or I became commissioner for Cocoa Beach and mayor. I do want to point out that I did leave mayor 1 year early, my term, before the term was up. I did state publicly I was pursuing other opportunities, and this, of course, is another opportunity. But more importantly, the reason why I left early was my mother came down with cancer last fall, and it was going to require a lot of help from family, and it was going to be a tough year. She passed away in January. Family comes first. The transition for Cocoa Beach was seamless. There's some new blood in there now, and Cocoa Beach is benefiting from that new blood. As I won't be pushing any personal agenda, one of my styles that will be different from the incumbent is going to be that I pledge more teamwork, more unity, and more solutions. Less fighting, isolation, and calling other solutions stupid. I pledge to work with the elected officials that you guys have elected. I'm assuming that you elected them for a reason, and if you don't like them, you'll unelect them. So I'm going to work with those people. I promise to work with Tallahassee and the other clerks. I promise to put prestige back into working for the clerks organization, and together, more teamwork to find collaborative solutions. The clerks organization is faced with many challenges, which I'm sure we're going to talk about. The budget is a major issue. Employee morale is a major issue. The employees have had no raise for 7 years. Healthcare costs are rising. And it's going to require some laser-focused attention and less side distractions to find solutions to these things. So really, it's going to require more leadership and less headlines. So vote Hedstrom in November. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I hope you all don't mind I didn't ask your permission ahead of time, but we have an intimate crowd this evening, so I took the liberty of calling you both by your first names. Dave, we'll start with you for this question, and I'm going to ask the same question of both of you. Why, Dave, do you want to be clerk of the court?
It's an important job. I know I'll be very good at it, and I think it's time for a change. It's been 16 years, and I'm going to provide a fresh way of looking at things, and as I said, more teamwork and less fighting.
All right, Scott?
I think I've done a good job over the last 4 years recovering from the Michigan issue. There had been a change in clerk actually in 2010. The office suffered through that for 2 years. I don't want the office to suffer through that again. I believe if re-elected that I can continue to work as we've done with the state, furthering the office electronically to make up for the cuts in funding. I don't think the funding cuts are going to stop. The clerks are funded based on court revenue. Court revenue has been dropping steadily for the last 5 or 6 years. And I think you need someone that knows the office, knows the people, and will come to work every day and do the job to steer through those waters.
Thank you. Dave, you have said tonight and where I've read that the budget for the clerk's office is at least one of the biggest issues facing the offices in this election, one of the biggest issues in this election. It's my understanding that the clerk's office has had a series of budget cuts over the last few years. I think, if I've got it right, a total of 20% cumulatively from 3 years ago. And it's my understanding that that comes from Tallahassee. And if I'm wrong, you can correct me. Mr. Scott has indicated that he may have to or will likely have to lay off staff as a result. My question is, what steps would you take to avoid cuts in personnel and other cuts in service as a result of this of the budget cuts?
Thank you. The Brevard County Clerk's budget was cut over 15%, which was the worst cut, the largest cut in all of the entire state of Florida out of 67 counties. You have to ask yourself, why was that? The average cut was only 5.7%. So either they think Tallahassee, the people that said this, think that we're fat down here in Brevard, or they just don't like the clerk that's here. You see how he operates with the local officials here, and doesn't get along very well with other officials. He complains that, for instance, Volusia County, they pay for or help support some of the IT up there in Volusia, and nobody down here helps him. Well, you kind of watch his style. It's kind of hard to want to help him sometimes. So I'm wondering if that's not also what's going on at Tallahassee. You do have to think. I would go to Tallahassee instead of fighting within Brevard here constantly. I would go fight for Brevard in Tallahassee to get our fair share back. Now, the other thing that's very real that we can do is go sit down with some of the other clerks within the peer group and anybody else that's doing some smart things and compare. Within the peer group, Brevard County actually has the second highest per capita cost. And so I want to go compare and find out why is our cost per capita so high compared to some of these others in the peer group. And by the way, the lowest per capita cost within the peer group also has the highest average salaries for the employees. So those are some of the things that I propose, and at a very high level, would tend to go focus on to help solve the budget problem.
Scott, would you like to respond? Or?
Sure, Jeff. 85% of our costs are personnel and benefits. You cannot take a 20% cut and not lay people off. You have certain fixed costs that come with the office, primarily dealing with the hardware and software you operate on. Just like you cannot pay 80% of your light bill, we can't pay 80% of our computer licenses. We must pay the full fees. You can go to Tallahassee all you like, it won't do you any good. Our budget doesn't come from Tallahassee, it comes from the CCOC, which is the Clerk's Operation Conference. The money they divide up are court fees collected all over the state. When those fees drop for whatever reason, all the clerks get cut. We were cut 12%, 4 counties were cut 12%, not 15. Our per capita cost is mostly driven by the insurance. Our insurance cost is higher, we're working on that. Our insurance cost is comparable to what you have in Cocoa Beach for your employees. Unfortunately, we don't have increasing revenues, we have decreasing revenues, and we're working on that issue. I don't deal with the other clerks. I'm not sure what type of job you think this is. This is not a legislative job where you go up and go meet all other legislators all the time. You're a clerk, you stay in your county, and you run your office. It's not a good old boys club where everybody goes up to Tallahassee and does backslapping. You run your office, we go off the court revenues that we're given. That's all there is. If there are changes made in the legislature, then you can contact your legislatures here at home. I don't see the need to go to Tallahassee when I want to talk to Ed Goodson or Rich Workman or any of our legislators. I contact them here. It's much simpler for me to contact them here at home than drive to Tallahassee and try and act in court.
Dave, let me follow up a little bit. Are you suggesting that budget cuts that the clerk's office has faced have to do with the current clerk of court, that it's related to him personally, or something else? Why did Brevard get singled out? And by the information that I got from the Clerk of Courts Operations Corporation, it was 15%, but whether it was 12 or 15, it's still the highest cut out of everybody else in the county, or in the state, and it really raises a red flag. I see how he operates here, I can understand. So, in regards to, as I said, you're a bit of an isolationist, and you just confirmed it when you don't go work with other clerks. And in the corporate world, one of the things you do is benchmarking. You want to go look at world-class operations and find out how they're operating and then learn from it. And I think that that's something, if there is other clerks out there that are doing something, and if their cost per capita is lower, then I would spend some time benchmarking and learning from them.
I did not say that we don't go see how other courts operate in other counties. I said I might go up there for backslapping good old boy good time, which you seem to think this is. Yes, I've had court clerks down. We've looked at Indian River County, Polk County. We looked at computer programs in Lee. We've gone to Orange. We've gone to Seminole. We look at the surrounding counties to see how they do business. One of the biggest reasons we've taken the hit is because of the way the state does case counts. So, for example, Volusia has, accordingly to the counts we've done, they have twice as many misdemeanors as we do. That's truly not the case, but what Volusia does is a rocket docket during spring break and bike week. So when you get an open container, any kind of disorderly conduct, they send you over to the little courtroom they run, go over on US 1, pay your fine. There's a judge, there's a public defender, there's a state attorney. If you don't pay your fine, then you can come back next month to court in Daytona Beach from Michigan, Ohio, or wherever you're at. In Volusia County, their IT department is paid for by the board. Lee County has their finance department paid for by the board. When the board pays for your court functions, it makes your per capita costs look better because you have people doing work in the courts that are not paid for out of court funds. We have 30 to 40 less employees total than Volusia, Polk, Lee, and Pasco County. We have fewer employees than our peer group, but they are not funded by the board. And if you think this board has money, I wish you well. They won't spend a nickel to pave a road. They claim the river's #1. They won't spend a nickel on the river. And if you think you're going to get money for the clerk's office, I'd like to see that pledge before we get to November. You go meet with the commissioners and you get that pledge from them, and if you're the new clerk, they're going to give you more money. And they will just roll over and die laughing.
I'm still curious as to why Brevard got picked on with the largest cut.
I just told you it's all based on case count. Is that something you don't understand?
No, I
There's case counts. Volusia allegedly has twice as many misdemeanors. Right? Someone gets a ticket for disorderly conduct, they walk over and they pay the fine, that's the end of it. In Brevard County, on a real misdemeanor, you get picked up, you're taken up to Sharp, we process you through the jail overnight, we process you out the door, we process your court dates. There's a lot more work involved with a real misdemeanor than a rocket docket. And that's how their numbers are up. Lee County has red light camera tickets. Now you should be familiar with that since you had red light camera tickets in Cocoa Beach.
Yeah, I got rid of them. And you should be happy because you had one of
We got
those.
rid of them because they were a headache for us. But Lee County gets 90,000 citations a year. We have 40,000 citations a year. Right? I don't have any control over that.
So why aren't you going up and working enough, arguing that, hey, we have real costs here that need more, and you can't just have these mathematical calculations that work toward this
That's
image?
because that is what we did in Orlando. Our initial, it didn't work. Our initial cut was $3.3 million. Our final cut was $1.3 million. So evidently something worked while we were over in Orlando. Not sure why, but evidently something must have worked since we were there to present.
You can see the challenges that we have in the office, and you certainly have different viewpoints in how this might be solved.
That's correct. You think everybody's going to throw you a lifeboat, and I'm telling you that you are on your own.
Well, let's leave that topic. Dave, let me ask you another question. You have suggested, I guess, I don't want to forge your mouth, but it seems to me that you suggested that Mr. Ellis is too political, if that's a fair characterization of your position. And if so, can you be specific about what you're talking about?
Mr. Ellis does use the position to his advantage to push his personal agenda. If there's things he doesn't like, he goes to extra efforts and extent to make them go away, whether it's community redevelopment agencies, whether it's economic development zones, and some of these incentives that have come here to create huge jobs and opportunities for our citizens. He doesn't like these, he goes after them. He's very political about it.
And how specifically do I go after them? Based on my opinion? That's correct, based on my opinion. However, I will tell you that the clerk's job is to ensure the lawful spending of your tax dollars. And if it's an unlawful expenditure, it is our job to stop that unlawful expenditure. Right? So if you want to vote with all your friends with the EDC and the TDC, and you want to give $8 million to Jeff Bezos and Blue Origin because you think we should give a guy worth $60 billion, $8 million, that's fine, that's legal. It's not legal to borrow that money. It's not legal to commit the county to 10 years to pay that money. That's what your job is as the clerk of courts. That is what you do in county finance, lawful, unlawful. I do think it's hilarious that you talk about not being political when the fact you're running is because evidently the political toes I'm stepping on are your supporters. And that's why you're here.
I'm probably 99% privately funded at the moment, and I'm doing this on my own, so I don't know where you're coming up with all these supporters. I'm fighting for, I get happy when we see these opportunities come in here, and there's small investments that need to be made. The payoff is absolutely huge. In fact, my own son has been able to move his family back to Brevard County, and now I get to see my granddaughter almost on a daily basis because the opportunities are here, and don't we all want that? And it seems like whenever there is an opportunity out there, you find some legal loophole or something. And by the way, Scott, just because you've got some attorneys that say this might be illegal, I'm sure there's a bunch of attorneys that would fight that otherwise. So again, you keep pushing your personal agenda. And I absolutely get the part of the job of where there really is fraud or something being done illegally. It would be my responsibility to go after that, and I pledge to do that.
Do you really pledge to do that?
Absolutely.
Because you don't seem to pledge to do that. What you seem is, for people you like, you're not going to touch those issues.
If there's something that's illegal or not proper, it's the clerk's job from a comptroller function to go after that and call it out.
And how do you know that without getting a legal opinion?
Of course you're going to have some legal opinions.
That's right. And you'll get legal opinions, and you'll determine legal and illegal. And yes, there will be conflicting legal opinions at times. And there are times you have to push that forward as a clerk of court.
And again, you have another area where Scott doesn't like the incentives, he doesn't like the EDC, he doesn't like these good opportunities. And by the way, tens of thousands of people are benefiting from these things. I think they're okay as long as they're legal. Yes, he caught one bad guy. Thank you very much, Scott. You did a good job of that, but that was 4 years ago. What are you doing for us today?
Well, I haven't caught any more yet, Dave. Are some more that you want me to catch? You tell me where they're at, because I'll be glad to go after them, because I'm not going to just let it roll.
There's no doubt in my mind, Scott.
Our office was taken for $7 million by a company that was allegedly vetted by the EDC. It's a fiasco. The EDC took a balance sheet that was an upside-down negative net worth, worked it with the company, flipped it over, hey, let's take these short-term liabilities, let's make them long-term liabilities, let's take some vaporware, and I'm an engineer too, so let's take a little bit of vaporware and we'll just put a $3 million value on it, and poof, this company goes red flag, and we're setting them up for $2.5 million in cash incentives. Yes, I do have a problem with that. And there are not tens of thousands of jobs based on the EDC. That is the biggest crock, and I know that's a side issue, but I didn't bring that side issue up. EDC is the biggest myth in Brevard County. And I know they're your friends and that's your supporters. They're not mine. They're not mine. I'm sorry. I don't believe in paying people to move here. Right? We moved here over 50 years ago. We were not paid to move here. I don't believe in paying businesses to move here. We have a wonderful county. We have a great technology base. We don't have to pay anybody to come here.
I absolutely agree with you. I wish it was absolutely illegal for any government entity to offer incentives anywhere in the country to be able to get them and steal them away from each other. It's absolutely wrong, but because it's a game that we have to be playing, it's a game that we have to be playing, and Brevard County, fortunately, is very good at it.
Grumman was already coming. Harris was never leaving. Everywhere is bailing out in the reality.
You keep thinking it's a poker game and you want to call their bluff. That's a very expensive, high-stakes poker game.
It is. But instead of calling their bluff, we're just going to roll over and hand over the money.
That's
what we've done. Let's just roll over. No money for roads, no money for the river, hell no money for Clerk. But here's $8 million for a multi-billionaire. Here's millions of dollars for a Walmart distribution center, like a distribution center is not located based on geography, not based on incentives. An unbelievable mall in Tysville, which you've been bragging about for 3 days. It's a Hobby Lobby amidst a rubble pile. It looks like you should have Barney Rubble out there and Fred Flintstone and Brontosaurus working on it. Right? That's what we've got, and no, I don't believe in paying for that. I don't believe in paying people to come here. Right? I'm proud of this county, and I don't think we have to pay anybody or any business to come here.
Again, we totally disagree on this subject, and you guys get to choose which way you want to go.
Scott, let me ask you to talk a little bit about the lawsuit that you were involved in with the EDC. What was that suit about? How did it serve the interests of the community or the citizens? And did it affect your budget?
Yes, it did. As a matter of fact, the first 2 years probably spent, I'd say, $120,000 in legal fees with the EDC. This year, of course, it's been over. But let me explain how that came about, Jeff. I come in the office, we've been taken for $7 million by Blueware. Blueware was operating with incentives set up by the state, vetted by the EDC. I did a very simple thing, used to dealing with other government entities. We went down to the EDC and asked for a copy of the Blueware file. I didn't ask for files on the other 8 companies they've allegedly brought here. I didn't ask for anything except the Blueware file. And they told me, no, absolutely not. They said it's all confidential. I said, okay, can I at least get the letter of confidentiality? And they said, no, we can't give that to you, that's confidential too. And I thought, wow, it's like double secret probation, is that I've got a confidential letter that's also confidential. Right? That's what started the ball rolling. Initially, what EDC claimed was there's a confidentiality clause. After FDLE got involved, the state of Florida wiped the confidentiality out with Enterprise Florida and Department of Economic Opportunity. The only place in the entire world that held that it was confidential was the EDC. They refused to give us the information. We've been in civil litigation with Blueware trying to get our money back. We finally got the last of the information about a month ago. Judge Moxley ruled in our favor. So I want to make that very clear. Judge Moxley ruled in our favor. Didn't rule in the EDC's favor. Had the EDC given us the Blueware file when we went down there and asked for it, there'd have been no legal fees on either side. And the legal fees by the EDC have all been paid for Brevard County taxpayers. To satisfy the ego of your friends at the EDC and try and put the lid on this deal. And if you look at the financials, you'll see this company should have been thrown out on their ear. They should not have been given any cash incentives. They're upside down on their net worth. And how it shows you what my feeling has always been on the EDC. You have fly-by-night companies with the right political friends, and here's a couple $1 million in economic incentives for you to come down here. So you can rip us off on the county nickel.
You did a good job with Blueware. You did a good job of defending the HP, so we don't have to pay that note. I don't have any problem with those things. The EDC battle has become very personal. You spent a lot of time and resources out of the office. You spent hundreds of thousands of dollars against what's basically a personal battle against the EDC and the leadership there. And you really got very little benefit out of it for the community. I mean, yeah, there was some ruling, you got a couple of documents, but really you spent an awful lot of time and effort that really had very little value to the public. You've probably chased away a ton of other companies that read these headlines and say, oh, we're crossing Brevard off the list. Meanwhile, your own office, you spend all this money, and your employees are getting kind of perturbed because it's like they haven't had a raise in 7 years. Scott's not paying attention. We've got challenges here, and he's blowing all this other money on this other stuff. That again, you could really argue what benefit really to the taxpayers.
Well, let's cover one thing very quickly. The state has forbidden us to give raises. State employees have not had a raise either. Our budget falls under the state. We have not been allowed to give raises. Now, let's go back to the EDC.
They gave you a raise. You've gotten $17,000 in additional pay when your employees have gotten zero.
Let's go back to the EDC. With the EDC, if what I got was so useless, why didn't they just hand it over to me? Why do we have to go to court? Why is everything one-sided? Why do we have to go to court to get this allegedly useless information? I'm asking you.
Why do you chase it?
I'm asking you.
You're the one that's the pit bull that goes after these things, and again, that's no value. Again, thank you very much for Rich Needleman. Thank you very much for the initial Blueware, and hopefully all those things, they face the proper things that they need to face. Thank you very much for defending us on the issue. That ADC one has become a personal agenda battle.
The EDC was the catalyst that made Blueware happen. Without EDC, there would be no Blueware. Had EDC properly vetted Blueware, there would have been no cash incentives, they would not have come to Florida, and we would not have been ripped off for $7 million. Which includes, you're right, there was $100,000 or more spent on EDC, and I spent more than that dealing with Hewlett-Packard because we were being sued for the $6 million that Mitch Needleman borrowed and gave it to Blueware on his way out the door, an illegal loan. We were still forced to defend against that illegal loan. So yes, you're right, I'm not happy with the EDC, I'm not happy with how they vetted Blueware, I don't see anything different. And the documents I have, which have the financials now, will show you they took a company that was upside down, they submitted that to Tallahassee, Enterprise, Florida, and Orlando. It was rejected. The initial application was rejected by the state. EDC then worked with Blueware, flipped the financials over, turned them from red to black, and all of a sudden, here's a couple $1 million in cash incentives for you. Their job is to vet this independently and objectively. They are not supposed to be cheerleaders for these companies. When they're cheerleaders for companies, all of us get ripped off, including the clerk's office.
Scott, do you expect the documents that you obtained will be beneficial in your office's attempt to get back the money from Blueware?
The problem we now have is the criminal case has gone on for well over 3 years. There was a hearing yesterday. It still continues to drag on. Had the criminal case been completed timely, we'd have been in better shape, both with Hewlett-Packard and with Blueware. The criminal case goes on. And I have no control over that. That's a case in Seminole County with Judge Alba. And truthfully, she doesn't have a lot of control of the case either. That's up to the attorneys. It is very frustrating. Most of the money we spent with the EDC was spent the first few years. All we've done now is the final settlement after we prevailed. After we prevailed, the EDC then took it to the 5th DCA, running up our legal fees. Thank you, EDC. Back to the circuit court, back to Judge Moxley. The clerk prevailed again in our settlement agreement to get the documents. And I'll say what I've said from the very beginning, that they had given us the documents on day one. There was nothing secret. Judge Moxley concurs. The legal cost would have been zero. Zero money spent if they were not a secretive operation operating with over $1.5 million of county money, your money, every single year.
Look, I agree. Blueware was not a win for the EDC.
It was a win for them.
But the EDC certainly does have a lot of wins, and they should get some credit for those wins that are benefiting the community.
All right, gentlemen, we've sort of come to the end. You've covered most of the things I was going to ask about. So I'll ask you to make some, whatever closing remarks you want to make, and I think we start with Dave before, so Scott will start with you.
Sure. This is a serious job. You need to come to work every day. It's a be prepared job. It's not a frivolous job. It's not a job that you jump into the race on a whim. You get elected on a whim. You take office on a whim. And then if you get tired of the job, you say it's just a reality show and then you leave. Right? That's not the type of job this is. This is a real job. You go to work every day, know your job, know your employees, and know what you have to do. Right? It's helpful to have technical skills. We both have technical skills. MBA is nice. We both have an MBA. It's important to have the people skills, and it's important to have the determination that you will go to work every day and do this job. It's not a flippant job.
With an MBA and an engineering degree, with international corporate experience, with some entrepreneur investor experience, with the mayoral and government experience, and with a pledge to run this position neutral without an agenda and focus on doing the job that you hired me to do, I am by far one of the most uniquely and best qualified to take over the leadership role in the clerk's office. You know, after 16 years, and I can't blame him, after 16 years, he's starting to sound a little grumpy. If you're tired of all the negativity and the complaining, and you're starting to feel good about Brevard County, you know, we're on the right path, some good things are happening, the economy's getting better, our children are able to move back and run with their careers here. If you really are starting to take pride in Brevard County, then I'm asking you to please vote for Nedstrom in November. Thank you very much.
I've not been there 16 years. Thank you. I did have a 2-year hiatus, which was fulfilled by Mitch Needleman, assisted by your EDC friends, to loot the office. That's why I came back. I didn't see anybody else running against Mitch Needleman in 2012. You had the option. My predecessor, Ford, in the primary had the option. Nobody else stepped up to the plate to go after the alleged crooked clerk. No one else. No help from the county, no help from anyone. And I ran the race. And we now have a criminal trial going on.
And I do thank you for those many years of service.
Thank you both, gentlemen, very much.
Thank you.